Howdy do goody two shoes, guide sorcery speaking, and welcome to the series where I ramble about music. The topic du jour is Battle Giovanni from Pokemon Masters. We first heard this track in the Father or Foe's story event, but the character himself debuted in the Lurking Shadows event, which we'll touch on a bit in both in this video. A bit of background about Giovanni. If you're a Pokemon fan and you don't know who this guy is, you got some required reading to do. I don't mean to gatekeep, but if you're a Pokemon fan and you are not familiar with Giovanni, you should probably do some research. Giovanni is kind of a big name in Pokemon. He is, of course, the leader of Team Rocket and Team Rainbow Rocket by extension. He is the main antagonist of the Gen 1 games, or the Kanto games rather, so Red, Blue, Yellow, Fire Red, Leaf Green, Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee. He made an appearance in Heart Gold, Soul Silver in the special Celebi event, where it is revealed he is Silver's father, and he appears in the Black 2 White 2 World Tournament as a gym leader, and he also appears in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon as the leader of Team Rainbow Rocket, kind of the overarching, baddie of baddies, the leader of all the other evil team leaders, which was pretty cool for the time. And he, of course, this is the version that appears in Pokemon Masters. The Giovanni, leader of Team Rainbow Rocket. At this point, the Team Rainbow Rocket event has not event. What am I saying? Team Rainbow Rocket story in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon has happened. This is a version of Giovanni that has just been through that. So he's already familiar with all the other evil team leaders, particularly Getsis. And yeah, this is the version that we encounter in the game. And he now has his own battle track, which is pretty hype. If you remember, my reaction to it is still on YouTube. It was my favorite track of the update, and it is still one of my favorite tracks of the soundtrack. So, but it is really hype on first listen. But when I listened to it deeper, when I took a bit of a listen to it, I dug deeper. I kind of took it apart. I realized a lot of things about this man and about Team Rocket that I feel not only like shows how much this track reflects who he is and his vision for Team Rocket and Team Rainbow Rocket, it also kind of reveals a lot about about why Team Rocket remains so popular. And I think what it is Team Rocket is very interesting. It holds an interesting place among the other evil teams and main antagonists, particularly. Team Skull and Team Yell don't really have are kind of in a similar boat, but they're not main antagonists, so they're not really in. They're not really on the same level, I suppose, because Team Rocket is continually the main antagonist of the Gen 1 games easily, but among the other evil teams, they don't have a specific, a very specific direction that they're going. Obviously Giovanni wants world domination. He wants to take over the world. He's a bit of a stock villain in that case. But instead of going in a specific direction like the other evil team leaders, like let's awaken Groudon, let's awaken Kyogre, let's harness the power of these legendary Pokemon to do this, or specifically to specific legendary Pokemon to get what they want. Instead of doing that, Giovanni has multiple different operations all over Kanto that all contribute, kind of like an octopus, or a branching web, rather than going in one specific direction. And this is evident in Team Rocket members in Lavender Town, Team Rocket members doing cons in Cerulean, stealing fossils in Mount Moon. There are various different operations with their own individual goals that do nothing but contribute to Giovanni's overall goal of world domination. And remember that he is also the gym leader of Viridian City, so he has some influence in the Pokemon League too. But even Team Rocket's presence in Johto and the Sevi Islands shows a lot of shows exactly how far his reach is, and just how much he controls, and how much how far away his influence is still being felt. And I think one thing that makes people return to Team Rocket over and over again, other than Gen 1 being really really popular, and Pokemon continuing to return to Kanto over and over again, is that we still don't know a whole lot about Team Rocket. It's still a bit of a mystery. It's still a bit of an enigma what Giovanni's overall plan was, how he intended to accomplish his goal of world domination. We still don't know what Team Rocket was doing in a lot of those cities. We just know that whatever it was bad, and it was it was helping to enforce Giovanni's influence on that area. But the fact that we continue learning more about Team Rocket, even now, like 25 years after the original game's released. In Gen 4 we learned about Giovanni's son, or well, Gen 3 we learned about his son. In Gen 4 we learned that his son was Silver. In Gen 7 we learned that Team Rocket had been converted into Team Rainbow Rocket, and they had all these different leaders under Giovanni's control now. We learned also over the years that Giovanni is actually a pretty effective and a bit of a transformative leader and a bit of a good boss, which as far as redeeming qualities go, that's a really good redeeming quality. And then we just continue learning more and more about Team Rocket. We still don't know exactly what it is, and I think that enigma, the mystery behind Giovanni and the mystery behind Team Rocket, has kept Pokemon fans intrigued, even more so than all the other organizations who had a very clear-cut path toward their destination, a very clear-cut goal. And but you keep seeing theories pop up as to what is Giovanni's relationship to Red, Giovanni's relationship to Ash, what is Team Rocket's relationship to Professor Oak. There's a whole ROM hack, the playthrough on my channel that I still need to finish. This is not a plug, because I really need to finish that ROM hack. But it's so that intrigue, the enigma, the mystery keeps people coming back to Team Rocket all the time, and I think these elements are what are kind of reflected in the music. So let's get right into it. The key is E minor. The tempo is in about 130 beats per minute. Which is interesting. We'll talk about this in a second, but let's get this first part out of the way. By the way, everything that I say is entirely speculative and or subjective. I do not mean to assign intent to the composers and arrangers, and I do not mean to say that this is the definitive analysis or the definitive interpretation of this work. If you have a different interpretation, or if you have a different perspective, please let me know in the comments. I absolutely love hearing different perspectives, and I absolutely love hearing different people talk about their relationship with the music or how they perceived it. So if you want to tell me about it, please feel free to do so in the comments. Feel free to even disagree with some of the stuff that I talk about here. So let's get right into it. Let's start with this intro, which is a little bit interesting, not gonna lie. Okay, before anything else, I know we're literally 3 seconds into the track, but this is something that is very common in Team Rocket's music, where we hear this little motif. Now, if you saw my Getsus video, you know what this is. That's a tritone. And that is an interval that was what's called the Devil's Interval. It was straight up banned during the Renaissance. You were not allowed to use it, and that's because it's very unsettling. It's very uncomfortable. It is dissonant. It does not resolve very easily. It's not. It's trying to resolve. It's trying to go up to that fifth, or it's trying to go down to that third, and it doesn't help that it's 6 half steps away from each other, which was not a fun number back in the Renaissance. But it's one of the easiest ways you can unsettle your you can unsettle your your listeners, and it's it's one way to really reinforce the fact that things are bad. And Team Rocket has this interesting pattern where it goes to a perfect fifth, which reinforces the idea of authority. It reinforces the idea of someone with a lot of power who has people under his control. The reason being, when you do a when you do follow, I can't talk all of a sudden. When perfect fifths, if you put them next to each other, they will give the illusion that one line is following the other. So, for example, um, it just feels like one note is tied too deeply to the other, and it also like it also like it's part of as part of the triad. It's it's the two uh, opposite ends of the triad really helps to enforce this idea that what we're talking about has a lot of authority. It's why you hear it a lot in fanfares and whatnot. But starting with that perfect fifth, and then going down to the in this case the A sharp. Now that's a good way to reinforce evil authority, or an evil organization, oh, under which there is authority from someone. Uh, my point is, you hear this a lot in Team Rocket's music. You hear it first of all in where is it? 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 Did I close it? I closed it like a dingus. Okay, you hear it. Let me pull it up. Team Rocket Hideout. Probably there it is. Yeah. But the Team Rocket Hideout is the first place that we hear this. Well, it's not the first, but it's one of the first. So let me pull this up here. So let me start that again. Bum bum bum. So that's the first place that we hear it. We also hear it in the Team Rocket Hideout theme in Heart Gold Soul Silver. And we also hear it in the anime, interestingly enough. Whenever Jesse and James begin their Team Rocket motto, we hear this. Bum bum bum. Which is very, very interesting. And we'll talk a little bit more about the Team Rocket motto in a bit, because I think there might actually be some influence there. So to begin with this motif is to really emphasize just who this man is, just what he has control over. What part of the purpose of Master's music is to remind people who they're fighting and bring back a lot of a nostalgia about who they're fighting. And I feel that starting with this very, very, very familiar motif is a good way to remind people just who Giovanni is, what Team Rocket is, what Giovanni is capable of, and what he controls. And it's, in my opinion, very effective. With that being said, let's keep on going. So with the synth and the brass, well, let's talk about the rhythm real quick. So I mentioned that this tempo is in 130, which is actually slower than Giovanni's Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon battle theme. Now, well, I remember that a lot of complaints about the Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon battle theme was that it was too slow. But it's approximately 134 beats per minute. Whereas this one is 130 beats per minute, and the drums play it in half time, which makes it feel a lot slower than it actually is. And yet, because the drums are so prevalent in this one, the drum set in particular, it feels somehow a bit faster, in my opinion. Like, if you were to listen to, let me hear, it's, this is the one. Of course, this track, the Ultra Sun Ultra Moon battle theme, is more heavily reliant on doesn't rely too much on the drum sets, relies more on timpanis, on more like I'm not really good with my percussion, but more on it doesn't rely heavily on like a more pop or heavy metal, not metal heavy metal, but like metal in general or rock in general. drum set like Masters does. But the fact that Masters relies on a lot more, a lot heavier instruments um, in terms of percussion makes it sound a lot faster, in my opinion, because it makes it feel like there's a lot more action going on rather than just the sheer grandeur and epicness of the percussion in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. If you can hear my dog howling downstairs, it's because we have folks working on the fence. Um, with that being said, want to talk a little bit about the what the synth and the brass line here. Let's replay it just as a reminder. Now, of course, we hear the Team Rocket motif again. Let's give it another listen. Bum 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 bum. Of course, it's separated this time by going down to the D sharp before going up to the B and the A sharp there. But you'll notice that the melody does this very, very, very interesting thing that it does. So it does a little Team Rocket leitmotif, of course, and then it goes down to this, and it really has that focus on that a natural G before going back down, hovering around with the F sharp, and then the A, and then the F natural before going back down to G. So, you know what that sounds like? I think this may have been unintentional, but it sounds a lot like the Team Rocket motto. Bum 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 bum. Of course, at the end there, it definitely differs a little. Actually, yeah, it differs a bit at the end, but it is interesting that it follows a very similar pattern to that. I don't know if it was intentional, but if it was intentional, composer, good job. Way to go, because that might have been one of the most subtle nods that I've ever heard, if it was intentional. If it's not intentional, it's still pretty cool. It's still a pretty cool line. So let's keep listening. Of course, we have, if you've played Kanto as often as I have, you'll recognize that on site. That is the Team Rocket hideout music, which I have somewhere here. It's at the end here because I just pulled it up. And you'll notice something strange. Well, not strange, but it is pretty much the Team Rocket hideout. It even has... So if you listen very closely, you'll hear the strings underneath it playing the... And even lower than that, you have some cellos or some lower string instruments at the very least. And then some lower strings come in here. I can't really imitate it as well as I wish I could. But this is something that is present in the Team Rocket hideout here. Of course, it gives this in the game. It gives this illusion of being able to like run through, some being very frantic. You are in literally an evil crime organization's lair, and there needs to be some. You have to be not just stealthy but also quick on your feet. You got to be ready to take them on. You got to be ready to hide. That sort of feel, that sort of like almost action movie sort of feel. Oh my goodness, my dog is going ham down there. But in my opinion, the combination of this the combination of those quick strings beneath the choir and the guitar talking about doing the melody, and we'll talk about the main melody in a second, and uh, the halftime drum rhythm creates this interesting illusion. So the drums being very slow give this idea that Giovanni is large. So slow, in my mind at the very least, automatically connects to large, and it makes Giovanni seem larger than life. It makes him seem like a bigger threat than all of the other villains or anyone else in Passio, including Team Break, I might add. Um, and but the rhythm but the specific timing of the drum beats almost makes it sound like a ticking clock, and that got me thinking as to like this specific segment, how quick the strings beneath the melody are going, and yet the melody is on beat, bum 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 bum, with the drums going bum 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 bum. All of the different parts are working at different speeds, and that idea of a ticking clock the really made me think about the range of Team Rocket. Like I mentioned earlier, it's less of a direct path and more of a web. So one operation could be going a lot faster pace, one could be going slower. Multiple operations could be working at a quicker pace to slowly bring about a larger goal. It's a really really cool way to think about the organization of Team Rocket and just how expansive Giovanni's reach is. And one thing I want to talk about the melody real quick is, like I said, it has the Team Rocket motif in it. We'll give it one more listen because I've been talking a while. You'll notice in between pairs of minor seconds, which by the way is another very dissonant interval. So, for example, from the Team Rocket motif that we were just talking about, well, the glitching keyboard just made it do that. So that is another dissonant interval. So, and the hideout theme, it goes. And every time it jumps to a different pair of minor seconds, um, it just jumps on to a different part of the scale, and that also, like, feeding into this idea that Team Rocket is this web, this wide-reaching organization that's like really really multitasking. You think about the number of places that Team Rocket appears, just popping up all over the region with different goals each time, to con you into joining Team Rocket at the end of Nugget Bridge, stealing fossils, killing Pokemon and keeping Mr. Fuji captive, like the Sylph Co., even Giovanni as leader of the Viridian City Gym. Just all these different places where Team Rocket has their influence, and that you encounter them and that you have to stop their individual operations. It really makes me think about that, because when you hear those minor seconds popping up just at different parts of the scale individually, it really makes you think about Team Rocket's wrongdoings in each part of Kanto, in my opinion. Again, feel free to add your own interpretation. But to consolidate this even further, just one more thing I want to bring up about this melody. Viridian Forest is strange. Viridian Forest is literally in the middle of, smack dab in the middle of Route 2. Before you even get your first gym badge, before you even encounter Team Rocket, you are heading through Viridian Forest and this place. And you can talk about this in different lights. You can talk about how Viridian Forest, the dark and creepy feel of Viridian Forest, is kind of reflects again the mystery of Team Rocket. How we still don't know a whole lot about it, similar to how you might get lost in a dark forest, how you might not know where you're going, and I got lost in Viridian Forest for like a week when I was a kid. But it's also, in my opinion, like, you don't even encounter Team Rocket in Viridian Forest, but the relationship between the Team Rocket kind of leitmotif happening in Viridian Forest, while Giovanni is the leader of the Radiant City Gym, I think serves as one of the earliest foreshadowings of the identity of the Viridian City Gym leader. Excuse me. And it just, in my opinion, it just goes to show just how wide-reaching, again, Giovanni's operations are. Even though Team Rocket didn't even make an appearance in Viridian Forest, Giovanni's influence in Viridian City helps to consolidate his relationship to that area. With that being said, let's continue. By the way, like, awesome choir. The choir is awesome in this. Like, vocalizing choir is a really good way to emphasize the epicness of something, because a group of singers, very, evokes an image of the, of cathedral choirs, related to, you think about, choruses of angels, but you also think about, the power to cast down, into the fiery depths, which also can sometimes be in classical music can sometimes be emphasized with by a choir. And the inclusion of the vocalizing choir in this really helps to emphasize the idea that this guy probably does not come from up there, but from down there, if you get what I'm saying. And of course, pairing that with the guitar and the synth and the drums behind it is a really good way to continue making the battle as hype as possible without losing too much without losing too much momentum. When getting caught up in the in the choral elements and the strings beneath it. Which was one of my gripes with Marshall. I'll talk about Marshall on another day, but whatever. Let's keep going. We already talked about that bit, so we'll just move on. This is interesting. As far as my research could find, this is a part of the Team Rocket hideout music, which I gotta find the exact part. Right there. But interestingly enough, it seems that the high and lower voices have switched places, indicating that this is definitely not the same Giovanni that we battled in the Kanto games, in the Gen 1 games. Let's call it the Kanto games, because it's just so... it's easier. But notice that the high and lower voices have switched places here. And then here. And I feel like this is a hint that this is not like... This is a hint of the same Giovanni that we battled in Kanto, but it's ultimately not. It is a Giovanni with much larger aspirations than just Kanto. This is a Giovanni who has, who straight up invaded... Probably another... I don't think it was ever made clear in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon if this Giovanni was from this dimension or another dimension like the other team leaders. But this Giovanni isn't just looking out for world domination. He has actively tried to make an army of Ultra Beasts to invade all dimensions. Which... It turns that idea of Giovanni having such limited control, or even just, not even trying to take advantage of Mewtwo, it turns it on its head, and I think that's what that represents. But it is also interrupted by probably one of my favorite string runs in the entire soundtrack. Hang on, we'll get there. So the strings and the synth do a string run leading up to the next part of this of the track, which is emphasized by several orchestra hits here, um, which is pretty common in in the soundtrack and pretty common overall. When Here, let me show you. So it's a pretty common way for the in terms of loops. It's a good way to loop it back to the beginning of a song or the beginning of a track in terms of video game loops. But what comes next threw me for a loop when I first heard it, and still confuses me a little bit today. Here, so what happens? Let me play it. All right, let me talk about what's going on. Let me talk about this. So, obviously, this is, first of all, if you've played the Johto games, this is the Team Rocket Heart Gold Soul Silver battle theme. Hang on, we'll get there. Now, slowed down, of course, it definitely appeals more to his Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon variant. The music hits a little bit different when it's slowed down because the notes that were once just, you know, filler eighth notes to build up to the next bum 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 are now a lot more emphasized. So give it a listen. Rather than just being runs like they are here. They're a lot more emphasized, and again, this helps to contribute the idea that Giovanni is first of all a larger than life villain or a bigger threat. It also helps to emphasize his power, how even the smallest things now feel a lot more powerful when he is at it. But also, let's give the let's give. Okay, I'll get to that in a second. We'll also want you to notice the return of the Team Rocket hideout beneath it here. Oh boy, I didn't mean to do that. And it stops whenever we do that bit, and then, which is something very interesting, and I think that was not present in the that was not present here in the Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon Rocket Boss Giovanni battle music. As a matter of fact, if we were to listen to the section of this theme that features the Rocket Hideout music, you'll notice it doesn't even have that lower part, that lower string part that we saw in this battle theme, which is very interesting. It is evident that this battle theme is more based on the Team Rocket hideout music rather than Giovanni's Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon music, which to me is very interesting. It says, I think, a lot about Giovanni's intentions in this game, as opposed to Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. And in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, he makes it very clear what his intentions are. He intends to create an army of Ultra Beasts. He intends to use the technology of the Ether Foundation to do that. At this point, it is June 16th, 2021 right now. At this point, we still do not know what Giovanni's intentions are in Pokemon Masters. And the fact that the focus is placed on the Team Rocket hideout theme, the theme that emphasizes his Team Rocket's reach, the web, this network that he's created, rather than battling Giovanni himself, really helps to emphasize the idea that perhaps we still don't know what he's up to. And perhaps even this very battle is completely probably might barely affect anything. This might just be a pit stop on his way to whatever his next area is, and it's a pit stop that doesn't matter. If the pit stop fails, then he could just keep moving on. I think I feel that's what I get from this. The fact that it's focusing more on the Team Rocket hideout than on the battle theme. In Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, at this point, you've pretty much cleaved through the other evil team leaders when you battle Giovanni. And he battles you, I feel, out of necessity to maintain his grip on the Ether Foundation. But at the end of the day, both Giovanni and Masters and Giovanni and Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, they ultimately hold back. They're ultimately not using as much of their power as they should. But I feel like losing Ether Foundation, Giovanni has to resort to a plan B. Whereas whatever's happening in Masters, in Lurking Shadows, in Father or Foe, where he's trying to gain control of Kierim, I feel like losing those battles meant next to nothing because he still had a master plan for the war, in my opinion. Whereas in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, the Ether Foundation, that was the war. It was a war he could afford to lose, but it was still like a much larger thing at stake. So that's what I get out of that. And one more thing that I want to talk about real quick is this threw me for a loop. Listen to the drums. Listen to they've stopped doing the whole halftime thing, and they've started doing this. So that drum beat, if you didn't hear it, it went something. I don't know if you can hear this. And like when I heard that, it felt like a vast. It was such a big difference from what I just heard previously. The halftime, the almost like making it seem so slow. Suddenly we're into a rhythm that is very reminiscent of reggaeton or merengue. Um, all these like different Cuban or Caribbean drum beats, which are a lot more fun and a lot more dancey than I would have expected out of that. When I heard that and I realized that, it threw me for a loop because what does that mean? I think what it ultimately means is just, I feel like Giovanni is having a lot of fun being evil. That's as much as I can get out of that. It's just strange how that rhythm, not only like it's supposed to summon an element of like just dancing. It's supposed to be a dance rhythm, but when paired with the soaring choral vocals and the and the guitar wailing out the Team Rocket battle theme. Which is, by the way, making use of a lot of it's a very it's making use of a more harmonic uh, a harmonic minor rather than the a melodic or a natural minor scale, and it has a lot of minor. It has two minor seconds there, mainly, which I won't go too much into. But pairing that under this very, very intimidating and very grand, we're going back to the idea of grandness in Giovanni as a larger than life villain, as someone who is very authoritative, but still very much a villain. Having that rhythm under there, not only does it keep the battle not only does it keep the battle music very, it keeps its momentum. It reminds you that this is a battle, this is a fight. We still gotta, there's a lot of action going on. Um, you know, uh, equivocating if that's even the correct term, equivocating the battle to a dance. But it also emphasizes the fact, in my opinion, that Giovanni is having too much fun being evil. Unlike all these other, a lot of these other villains, who do what they do out of necessity, who do what they do because they're aspiring to some better world for everyone. Giovanni, on the other hand, is having a lot of fun being evil, and he's having a lot of fun doing what he does. Um, in my personal opinion. Now, like, again, if you read that differently, please let me know. I am actually very curious to hear what you think about this merengue, reggaeton, almost drum rhythm that goes on underneath the battle theme here. After this, we go down to almost to something that is actually not that common in Masters music. This is the part of the track where the composer has to return this to the start of a loop. So, hang on. It's pretty common for the master soundtrack to go in unison at that point, for the instruments to go into unison, for the percussion to follow the instruments, and for not too much complexity to happen there. That's just a way to kind of a way to reset, essentially. But this is a very interesting reset in that usually. In that it actually stays in the key, I suppose. It's not something you hear often in the master soundtrack, and um, I feel like they hit a lot of momentum. This is an interesting track in that the climax, for a lot of the master soundtracks, the climax happens like immediately after the intro. But for Giovanni, he builds up to his big battle theme, which again has a lot to do with the way he, even as he's using Mewtwo, just having control of Mewtwo is not, he doesn't mean jack to him. He still has a lot to do. He still has a lot of planning to do. You'll notice as the other team leaders in their respective events, Lysander having Eveltal immediately goes to to destroying everything. Cyrus having Palkia immediately tries to, create this new world instead of going on a step by step. Like there's Giovanni is often seen in Masters going like all according to plan. We still have a lot to do. This is like it really building up to this climax, and the fact. So instead of, whereas most Masters tracks, because the climax is like at the beginning, they have to the purpose of the reset is to build back up to that climax to reset the hype. But because Giovanni's climax is at the end, the hype has to go back down. So it's a lot lower. It's based in the same key, and it's basically a way to tone it down a bit. Where we got to get back to the beginning here, as evidence here, where we have the chromatic climb back up to the Team Rocket hideout theme. So yeah, that was my thoughts on Battle Giovanni. I still really, really love this track. Giovanni, of course, I'm biased though. Giovanni is my favorite Pokemon villain, easily. And to hear this, and to hear it being vastly different from the Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon theme that he had, which I still love. I'm not sure if I love the Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon battle theme for Giovanni more or less, and I think I like them equally. I think this is definitely a better battle theme for him, but I definitely enjoy the Team Rocket sort of medley that Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon had. Um, I I think it, like, listening to this and picking it apart really made me think a lot about Giovanni as a character and Team Rocket as an organization and as a part of this world. Masters is, I think, the world building for Pokemon, taking advantage of the world that they have. Like, Pokemon has such potential for world building, like so much potential for world building. I think Masters is the game that finally takes advantage of that, and the music is, just a great way to reflect that. And this, I feel like, was a great way to reflect all of the development that Team Rocket has had, like all the things that we've learned about Team Rocket over the years, all the things we know about Giovanni as a character. It's a great reflection of both Team Rocket and Giovanni, and it's also hype. Again, it's just really really hype. It never loses its momentum. Like, I didn't think personally that the Ultra Sun Ultra Moon battle theme lost its momentum. Like, I really wanted to feel like I was fighting a big villain that could flick me like an ant at any moment. But having a battle theme that you know uh, remembers that it is a battle theme is still a lot of fun to me. So that is my thoughts on Battle Giovanni. It's a really great track. Give it a listen if you haven't already. The link will be in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and favorite, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know down in the comments what you think of Battle Giovanni. Was there anything I missed? Do you have any additional perspectives, any additional insights that you'd like to add? Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. Also, please follow me on Twitch if you haven't already. We stream Pokemon Masters a lot. I stream a lot of Pokemon content, and we do a lot of charity work over there as well. So with all that being said, thank you all so much for watching. Catch you next time. Smell you later.